Hey, what's up, everybody? One coach's opinion, and just remember, it's my opinion and not a fact. And let me say something. I do these things based on experience, or something I've experienced, or something I watched, or something like that. Just an idea I've had, So sometimes, a lot of times, I might make one of these just to remind myself of something to instill in my fighters, something that has occurred and we might have a disagreement on or something like that. So a lot of times, man, I'm not saying I'm trying to educate. I'm just trying to share my ideas with the boxing world, because that's what boxing is about. It's a bunch of coaches with different ideas of how things should work. That's how, except for the basic jab, 1-2, stuff like that, we all have our theories. Some guys had a walk down method. Some guys have the backup counter punch method. Some guys have a lot of methods. But to go on with the show, today I want to discuss something that went on when I was working with a fighter. He was sparring the other day. So I'm telling him to throw this certain punch because it puts his opponent. So, okay, when I'm coaching or I'm working a corner, what I'm looking for is how the other fighter is reacting to certain stuff you do. Now, when I find a certain reaction that I really don't like, then I try to get you to exploit that reaction. So if you throw a certain punch and instead of correctly defending the punch, he makes you miss, but he does the same thing every time, which is bad. Like, it could be footwork, it could be a dropping of the hand, it could be like some guys, okay, for instance, some guys teach the slip and they keep their hands up when they slip. Some guys, when they slip to their power side, they drop this hand. It's just a bad habit that they can't stop, because if they could stop it, it wouldn't be happening. So I was telling him, look, throw this. I said, it looks like you're trying your best to set this punch up and land it. I don't need this punch to land. I need you to throw this punch with respect. That means we're looking for a reaction, but if he doesn't react, you're going to hit him. If he doesn't give me this reaction I want, you'll probably hit him, or he's going to block it or something like that. But his reaction is setting up the next punch. And that's where I feel chess is involved when it comes to boxing, because, you find a good chess player that can say, I got you in 4 moves, and there's nothing you can do about it. With all your pieces on the board, with everything that's going on, I've just put you in a position where I'm in control, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's where chess comes in to boxing. Now, poker comes into boxing is when you make a person think you have them in 4 moves, and they're doing everything to get this 4 moves done. Like, if you're like, hey man, it's almost over, and they're kind of like, man, what does he see that I don't see? And he's going to a panic. That's the poker part of boxing. The chess part of boxing is actually having a person in a position they can't do nothing about, no matter what. So as he's throwing this punch, I'm getting a certain reaction. I'm telling him, man, keep finishing up with this punch. And I even asked him, I said, it looks to me like you're trying to land this hook, and you're waiting on throwing the hook until you think it's a landable shot. I am. I said, but that's not what I'm asking you to do. I know what's going on. I want you to do something that's going to put him in a position in which, when you throw the punch I want you to land, there's nothing he can do about it. Nothing whatsoever, because I've seen this flaw. Now, what you need is somebody to believe in what they can't see. And that's where the humanity, the human side of boxing comes in. If I can't see it, I'm not going to do it. And that's where you have a clash between a fighter and a coach, because a fighter should believe in his coach, and a coach should believe in his fighter. A coach shouldn't give his fighter nothing that he's incapable of doing. And a fighter, shouldn't have a coach that he doesn't believe that what he's telling you is going to happen will happen. You know, I mean, now, if there are chances where the fighter could be wrong, the coach could be wrong. But as long as it ain't detrimental where, man, you know, I made this wrong move and he put you in a thing where, look, you need to land this shot, but I warn you, if you don't land this shot, most likely he's going to come back with this shot and you're going to get knocked out. That's not a smart move. That's you gambling. That's you like a 50-50 bet. But if I can get a 70-30 bet, and so we do something that in 70% of the time you're good, but in 30% of the time he's good, I call that a winning battle. As long as you're defending yourself properly, these are shots, as you say. If a fighter to me and say, man, he keeps throwing that hook, and you can see the shot that he's throwing, then you should be able to defend that shot. If you don't see it and you're getting hit with it, and you're like, well, coach, he keeps hitting me with this, keeps hitting me with that. Yeah, that's because you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. And your coach should be able to tell you. Now, both of y'all are to the point where you can't figure out why you're getting hit. Then it's a great job on the other coach and the other fighter, because neither you or your coach can figure out what's going on and what's happening. And if you've ever been in that situation with your coach where something was just working, and between the other coach and that fighter, they couldn't figure out what you were doing, then you have a good coach. You have a good coach. So, anyway, I'm trying to get him to throw this shot. This shot really makes this guy vulnerable to a lot of other shots, but you got to believe in the shot. Don't believe in landing the shot. Believe in throwing it respectfully. Remember that word, respectfully. Like, if you're throwing a double jab and the first jab is just a jab that you're trying to get a reaction from, and then you're trying to land the second jab and whatever comes behind it, then you're throwing the first jab respectfully. Not just flicking out a jab, a nonsense jab to try to set him up. You're throwing a jab that, look, if you don't give me the reaction I need, this jab is going to hit you. But since you are giving me the reaction I need, that brings me to step 2. And if you get a fighter that can go to step 2, step 3, or step 4, you're going to have a world champion. The average fighter probably can go to step 2. Some fighters can't get past step 1. Meaning, if the first thing I try doesn't work, I'm going to something else. But every time a fighter defends a certain punch, even if he defends it successfully, there's something else he opens up usually. Unless you just have a guy like you know, there was guys like Winky Wright. When he fought anybody literally his size, he dominated because they couldn't break through his defense. That's what made him such a great fighter. You know what I'm saying? And it took him a while to learn this, but once he got that craft down, he was a hell of a fighter. I just think sometimes he chose some heavier dudes because the guys his size wouldn't fight him. I mean, you beat the guys like Trinidad, you beat the guys Shane Mosley, all the guys that you can make weight on, and then you have to go up and fight the guys like Jermaine Taylor, guys that are physically bigger than you, but you're just fighting because the other guys won't take the fight. I mean, that's when the problem comes in. But anyway, the fighter says to me, I'm trying to get him to do this action. You think a guy is going to fall for the same thing every time? And I was like, yeah, until he doesn't. That's what makes it a mistake. You know, if it's just something this one time he was out of whack, yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. But if I see the reaction every time he throws a punch, that's what I'm looking for. Not the one time you threw it and he reacted wrong. If you throw it the second time and there's a whole different reaction, that's not the punch I'm looking for. I'm not going to just have you throwing this punch, blessed on, or maybe he might react the way I wanted to react, but he got 3 or 4 different reactions to this punch. And 3 or 4 different reactions puts you in danger. If a guy can do 3 or 4 different things off a punch you're throwing, I suggest you don't throw that punch anymore. But if you have, say, a 80 percent chance of landing or getting the reaction we need to get, then that's a successful punch. Don't let the 20% deter you. Like if a guy fights with his hand down and you're hitting with a straight punch, and sometimes he puts his hand up, that don't mean, oh yeah, that's gone. No, it means he's gonna put his hand down again. It's a bad habit. It's gonna happen. You know, it's just the way it is. And the thing is, this is the part I really don't understand. If your coach tells you the same thing over and over, and you keep doing it, and you even sometimes acknowledge it, you're like, yeah, I see it, I got you, but you keep doing it, how can you sit and say that a fighter's not going to fall for the same thing every time when you're making the same mistake over and over and your coach keeps saying something to you about it? So it's two things. Either you have a coach that just picks on you and you don't trust, or you have a coach that's telling you basically you're making the same mistake every time. And you get tired of hearing him say it, but if he keeps saying it, it's because you're making the same mistake. Otherwise, he wouldn't say it anymore. If you don't think it's a mistake and he thinks it's a mistake, then you probably don't make a good team. Now, there'll be times, and if this happens all the time, then you probably don't make a good team. Now, if every once in a while he makes a bad call or you make a bad call, you know, it really shouldn't be. If majority of times the calls he makes are good and the majority of time the stuff you do is good, then y'all make a good team. Your training is working. Every now and then we have to make some adjustments. That's what coaches should be about. You start fighting guys at a certain level, every now and then you're going to have to make some adjustments. And that's just how it's going to be. But if majority of times you fight people and you win, then y'all probably make a good team together. That's what I would say. Now, if you're, like I said, if you're making the same mistake, you got to realize everybody else makes the same mistake. There's guys out here, and if you're a coach, you know you got different guys. And let me say this, if all of your guys make the same mistake, then it's your coach. If every last one of your guys is susceptible to right hands, then it's your coach. Even if it's your southpaws or whatever, if they're being exposed to the same hand or the same punch that everybody else gets exposed to, then it could be your coach. But like I said, things get exploited, and that's why say you got the A side, you got the B side. Now, A side and B side really just really takes place during skill level of fighters getting built. Guess what? We're putting guys in front of them that are tough, that are coming to win. But we expect you to beat this guy so we can move on, and that's why I'm promoting. B-side guys, we know what you're doing. Your career probably, everybody ain't gonna be world champions. I don't mean you can't make good money in boxing and you can't have a good boxing career. You're just not gonna be that A-level guy that makes multiple money, but you could make a decent living being a good C-level guy that knows how to protect himself. So that's when maybe a B-side guy comes in. So when you got a guy that say he has 10 losses, but he's never been stopped, he'll probably be on the B side somewhere, and promoters will use this guy because they say he's tough, he's durable, he knows how to protect himself, he's not going to get hurt, and he's not just going to go to sleep. You're not going to make even a good B side guy if you got 10 losses and 10 knockouts. Pretty soon commissions are going to say, no, this guy can't fight. But if you don't get knocked out, you probably can fight all your life. And if that means taking a fight here or there for $8,000-$9,000 and you walk away unscathed, sure, you're not a world champion. Sure, you might not have a belt, but that's what you're supposed to do. So I say this to say, on that A side, B side thing coming up, you're gonna beat most of these guys that you fight if the plan goes right. Therefore, if you beat 90% of your guys, or say 95%, and you have a couple losses, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that your plan is flawed. It just means that at a certain point, really the only thing between the A side and the B side is really going to be who walks out first. When you get to a certain level, there's still an A side, there's still a B side, but normally if you're the champion, you walk out last. Now, as you can see in that Anthony Joshua fight that just happened, the champion walked out first. That means Anthony Joshua had enough pull in that stadium to say, I'm the strong. I don't care who has the belts. I don't care who's in the position, whatever, you know. But I'm walking out last. This is my show. And that's why, you know, I kind of cheered for Dubois on that fight because, I mean, I'm just the underdog. If you're going to tell a dude he has no hopes in winning the fight, and he's actually worthy of winning the fight and can win the fight, I like to see that guy win the fight, not to be funny. I mean, when all the odds are against you, that's a great thing to just see somebody, everybody had you losing this fight, and you turn around and shock the world. That's the stuff I like to see. But back to what we're saying, if you're beating majority of these guys, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You and your coach have a good relationship. Your stuff is working. But don't forget that these are learning experience type guys. Now, on the way up, you should be learning, honing your craft, and doing things that's going to help you with the next guy. That's with everything. If you're sparring, your sparring should be something that's helping your craft. If you got a guy that can beat the crap out of most people in the gym, but when you go outside, everybody's gym has a number one. But guess what? Your number one can be considered a number 9 when you start going to other gyms. If you have a number 1 in your gym, then every time you go to other gyms, doesn't do that well, he's just the number 1 in your gym. So everybody has that guy. There's always going to be levels to this. So if that number 1, I say this because if that number 1 is sitting there beating up on all the number 2, 3, 4 guys in the gym and not bothering to maybe learn how to defend himself a little better or learn something from the sparring, only thing he wants to do is hammer these guys until he can, you know, put up his little sparring videos and sparring clips and tell everybody what he did in sparring. He's not really helping himself, trust me. He's just sharpening a tool that's already sharp. And guess what? When it comes to his other tools, he's going to start using the wrong tool to fix certain problems. And that's where the trouble begins in boxing. You have one tool that's sharp as I don't know what, but guess what? That's your go-to tool. When times get hard, you just go to this tool no matter what. No matter what, I'm going to go to this tool. If you take a hammer and hit it on a branch enough times, you'll probably tear the skin of the tree, but you might knock that branch off. But if you take an axe, I guarantee you have a better time doing it. So you might be successful. You know what I'm saying? But it's how successful you're going to be. You can kill a deer with a knife, but I guarantee you a gun works better. You have a better chance with a gun. It's a lot of things you got to do, but a deer can be killed. There were times when people didn't have weapons that shot, and they had to fend for their food like that, set traps. Then things got easier. Always remember that. So, like I'm saying, if you're sitting around sharpening the same tool, doing the same things you do every day, and it's working for you with the same people you're working with every day, then really what's working for you is actually working against you, because you're not getting any better. You're not taking on any challenges. If you're sparring a guy, say you're the best guy in your gym, and you're sparring a guy, and you work when he's doing good, and you're working on your craft. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. See what I'm saying? And he lands a few shots, a little bit harder than you expected. And you say, man, fuck this. I'm about to knock this one out. Then you just really just knocked out a guy that you'll never be seeing him when it really counts. You'll never have the caliber of people fighting, and you just wasted a sparring partner and an opportunity, because basically when you get hit, instead of correcting the problem, you think, now I'm gonna knock him out and hit him harder. And that's not really correct. Their problem was your defense. It wasn't your offense. So think about that, man. Sometimes you sparring. Sparring is really to help you work on your flaws. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, and when you go to other gyms and fight unfamiliar sparring partners, that's when you bring out your sharp tools. But I'd rather have a toolbox full of well-equipped tools and proper tools, a lot of them, than a toolbox filled with a hammer and a screwdriver. Push come to shove, I'm gonna hit him with the hammer. If he moves this way, then I'm gonna pull out the screwdriver. You know what I'm saying? You want a toolbox full of tools so you can make adjustments. You can make way more adjustments with a full set of tools than you can with one or two sharp tools. Always remember that. So when you're sparring, that is your goal when you're sparring.
But gosh.
Wow. So World Coach's opinion. Evidently, it's time for me to end this. Hey, think about what I'm saying, man. One Coach opinion. I'm out.